Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to take a quick look at Red Goblin Champion Spotlight, and we're going to break down all of his abilities as well as I'm going to give kind of my initial impressions. So basically Red Goblin is quite obviously Green Goblin mixed with Carnage Symbiote, and there's pretty much all but one I think Symbiote champions, if I'm not mistaken. It's Cosmic. Symbiotes are always Cosmic, like Venom, like Carnage, like whatever have you. Except for Sorcerer Supreme, Symbiote Supreme. There we go. But yeah, I'm not going to read all of his abilities. His prestige is decent for sure. He has a new buff called True Sense. This is the first time I see that buff, which is effectively a variation of we have True Accuracy, we have True Strike. True Sense is shutting down Miss and Auto Block. As we all know, Miss is becoming more and more frequently seen mechanic now. Even last month we had Professor X, then we obviously have an Ebony Maw, Invisible Woman, and more champions. I know Tigra has the Miss mechanic. So basically, yeah, it's kind of like a new generation of Wade, which now Red Goblin will be able to counter. Energize is a rebranded, reworded power gain. It's simply increased combat power rate effectively, and then you have Fury and Aptitude. Now, as most of the Cosmic Champions, we're gonna flat out gonna go to he gets buffs and he inflicts debuffs. That's pretty much the trademark of the Cosmic Champion. Get Furies, get Precisions, get Aptitudes, and then you armor break the opponent or do whatever you have with them. Now, one that ability that is actually really nice to see, and the main ability I would say that actually makes Venom as relevant of a champion as he is, and this ability alone can let a champion kind of like stand to a position where he will 100% be occasionally useful, is the fact that Spider-Verse champions cannot evade him, and anybody in Spider-Verse basically has minus 100% passive evade ability accuracy reduction, so it kind of works like Venom. So that alone is going to make this champion in particular, at the very least, occasionally useful. Now, everything else about him is quite standard, to be honest. It's kind of like a mix of Carnage and Green Goblin, obviously. So you have these bombs with several different effects. These three effects will include Power Drain, Armor Break, and Incinerate, depending on what kind of buffs you have active. And you will be able to activate buffs exactly like Carnage does, basically, where you, well, yeah, drop a special attack and you gain a buff based on which is the last attack that you used. So just like Carnage over there. He has something of an addition that neither Green Goblin and Carnage had, and that's called his Frenzy mode. While the opponent has less than 15% health remaining activate Frenzy, each Bloodlust increases this threshold by a flat 10%, reaching 65% at max Bloodlust. So you start the quest with one Bloodlust. Every time you defeat an opponent, you gain a Bloodlust, and whenever you get knocked out, you lose 2 Bloodlusts. But basically, you get up to 5 Bloodlusts, and this Frenzy mode is gonna activate at 65% of opponent's health, or after you drop a level 3 attack. Now, Frenzy also triggers True Sense buff, bypassing the effects of Miss and Auto Block. If Frenzy ends, this buff is removed. Now, this will inevitably be useful. Unfortunately, it's not quite the reliable ability that you would normally seek for. For instance, if you are looking to counter Miss or Auto Block abilities in Alliance War, more often than not. For instance, if you are going to go up against an Invisible Woman, the fact that you can bypass Miss after level 3, or if she is below 15%, it's not really quite good enough to kind of like use this guy instead of like Nick Fury or Human Torch or your typical Miss counters. Because let's say in Alliance War, you will not have likely the opportunity to build up him to 5 Bloodlusts. So that means he's gonna activate his Frenzy at like 25%, 35% of the health, or after level 3, which again takes a while to get there. And yeah, that kind of counter ability is not going to quite work against a lot of matchups where you would really like to have this ability ready. He will be a good champion to kind of like sub in when you kind of like start chipping down at something, and then let's say you get knocked out halfway through, and then you bring in this guy to finish off the fight. But how often that will happen? Obviously, there will be matchups where this stuff is going to be useful, like Iron Man Infinity War, for instance. Last 15% is when he has his crazy auto block phase and he can bypass it completely 100%. So there's that. So there will be obviously matchups where it is extremely beneficial and useful. And the last added benefit from Frenzy is you get attack bonus basically for each Bloodlust charge. However, the potency of this attack boost gets reduced by each additional Bloodlust charge. So basically, first one gives you 314, second one will give you something like 270, I don't know, 250, then third one's going to give you less, and fourth one's going to give you less, but it all adds up, and it will increase his attack quite significantly. And now, special activation, as I mentioned, activates symbiote buffs, just like Carnage did, basically, where activating special attack creates a buff based on the last attack launched. You have light attacks that gives you power gain, so you do not have this persistent power gain like with Carnage, where as long as opponent was bleeding, you gained that power gain. Here, it is increased combat power rate, and so you get a 25% one, but however, you have aptitude that increases the potency of that. Then you also have access to Fury if you finish with medium attack, and you can kind of like customize what is more important to you. And with Awakened ability, you effectively gain 2 of those buffs. However, the second one comes with reduced potency, so you can see that special attacks generate +1 symbiote buff with 35% reduced potency. So if you're gonna have him awakened, when you get the Fury buff, you effectively gain 2. Now, unlike Carnage, these buffs aren't permanent. They are temporary buffs for 15-second duration. However, they start paused, but if you trigger like the second set of them, then they get unpaused and they expire at 15 seconds. So I'm not quite sure how the rotation is going to work, whether it unpauses all of them and you just want to kind of like stack 1 of each and then go for a second Fury, or yeah, it's a bit unclear. But by the looks of it, he's going to be quite high damage dealing champion. Now, where we have special attacks, I think where we had special 1, well, we have heavy attacks and special 2, inflict these Carnage bombs. And we're going to add special 1 in a second. And this is the bit from Green Goblin. Basically, based on what kind of buffs you have, you inflict corresponding debuffs to your opponent. For power gain buff, each power gain buff inflicts a small power drain on opponent. Each Fury buff inflicts armor break on opponent. And any other buffs inflict incinerate. So that would be kind of your aptitude buff, for instance. And yeah, so these are the 3 debuffs that you will be able to work with, which is Power Drain, Armor Break, and Incinerate. And heavy attacks also trigger these Carnage bombs to activate. However, they have significantly reduced duration, 65% reduced duration, so they would only last like 5 seconds or so. But it's still, it's definitely better than nothing, because you would be able to apply a whole bunch of armor break, especially if you get a chance to spam some of those heavy attacks 2 or 3 in a row. But yeah, so special 1 symbiote rush down. Basically, it's going to be where your symbiote part attacks, and then you drop this Carnage bomb. So all 5 hits of symbiote deal a burst damage of equal to 100% of damage dealt. Potency increased by 100% for each unique debuff on the opponent. So seemingly, he will have access to quite a lot of extra burst damage on special attacks based on each buffs. So obviously, any matchup where you do not have access to too many buffs, he's not going to be really the hardest hitting one. But that is pretty much the story of most of the Cosmic Champions. And then the last part of special 1, the Shrapnel Blast, inflict Incinerate, dealing 3000 energy damage over 20 seconds. So it is quite hefty, lengthy Incinerate. And yeah, now we have special 2, Carnage Bombs inflict Carnage Bomb debuffs. Cool. After burner, all 3 hits deal burst of 20,000 damage basically. So that's kind of cool. We need to see how many Carnage bomb debuffs you can inflict and how many of those bombs get detonated, but hopefully it's quite a lot of them, because the implication is, especially after special 3, where it states inflict 7 random Carnage bomb debuffs with 50% increased duration. So that special 3 could be quite savage, not to mention it activates Frenzy, which gives you attack increase, lets you bypass, miss, and auto block. But again, having this Frenzy mode locked behind level 3 or this health gate will be useful at times, but isn't something that you can reliably access to at the beginning of the fight. Therefore, I think it will automatically disqualify a red Goblin for a fair amount of matchups in Alliance Quest, Alliance War, probably Quest as well. So overall, I already explained signature ability. I'm gonna quickly go synergy bonus breakdown, and then I'm going to do my overall impression of the guy. So with Green Goblin and Carnage, Red Goblin gain +1 Bloodlust. For the first time, Red Goblin wins a fight in a quest, so that helps him ramp up a bit quicker, nothing too great. Green Goblin launching special attacks sets Madness and Cunning stacks to be even, while both stacks are even, increase ability accuracy by 25%. It's nice, whatever. And Carnage, when genetic mutation ends, generate 1 additional permanent buff after reaching max permanent buffs. Future symbiote creation buffs last 10 seconds. So this actually could be quite cool to let him increase buffs and consistently create more and more buffs as you spam special attacks. So yeah, I'm all for to see what happens there with Carnage, because Carnage is one of my favorite champions to play with. So there is a good chance that this champion hopefully will also have entertaining playstyle at the very least. Now we have Family Feud with Venom. Red Goblin lose 1 less bloodlust when defeated. Nobody plans on getting defeated. Reduce the duration of Venom's Clintar buff by 30%, so Venom ramps up quicker in a fight. But again, nothing too kind of crazy over there. Now we have Hatred with Spider-Man Symbiote. Red Goblin, while Frenzy is active, increase buff duration by 30%. This could be quite good. This could be quite useful, because 30% of those 15 seconds would be quite significant duration increase. Spider-Man Symbiote Special 2 creates non-stacking Fury buff, granting 5% attack for each armor break on the opponent lasting 20 seconds, while active heavy attacks inflict 1 additional armor break. So Spider-Man Symbiote doesn't really have a problem with damage as is, but this could potentially make him hit really hard. Unfortunately, the problem with Spider-Man Symbiote is the fact that he has literally 0 utility outside of ability to interact with Despair Mastery and shut down somebody's heal by spamming those armor breaks. But I mean, it's interesting, it's gonna be cool. Probably gonna make it to a video or something like that, but it's not really gonna make him like a great champion. It's just gonna give him a bunch more damage, but kind of cool, I guess. And then we have a synergy with Iron Patriot, which is quite cool. But first, Red Goblin, while Frenzy is active, Fury and Energized buffs have 15% increased potency. It's kind of nice. Iron Patriot Arc Overlord grants a Fury buff, increasing attack rating by 300% for 30 seconds. No longer burns out the Iron Patriot suit and can be reactivated after 60-second cooldown. Obviously, Iron Patriot needs a lot more than that, but he's not going to be as useless anymore. And yeah, it would be interesting to see how many times you can trigger this in like one Labyrinth of Legends fight or something like that. But hey, it's definite indirect buff to Iron Patriot. Obviously, that synergy will make him a lot better, just not good enough to do anything meaningful, I think. Then we have Symbiote Consciousness with Carnage, Symbiote Supreme, Venom the Duck. Each symbiote on the team grants plus 15% increased critical damage rating. Now that could add up to a lot of extra damage for many of the symbiotes, especially because we know we have, for instance, Carnage, who already can hit like an absolute tank, especially when you get some of the precisions up or with the permanent buff. So I'm definitely very interested to get this guy for synergies and then have some fun with Carnage, because you're going to get extra buffs and you're going to have increased critical damage ratings. So Carnage is already a really high damage output champion. And this could push his damage even further. Again, Carnage isn't never going to be the best champion in top meta option the way he is right now anyways. But having more damage on a really exciting champion, I'm all for that. And then you have Nemesis with Spider-Man Classic, Spider-Man Stark Enhanced, and Spider-Man Stealth Suit, where everybody gains some attack. Cool. Right. So overall, what are my impressions about this guy? It's quite simple. He is likely going to be very, very fun. There is one thing that I didn't mention, that is his immunity to Incinerate and Power Burn. So that is kind of cool. That Power Burn one, you need to check which nodes it will interact, because we have these like static blasts and things like that which do power burn you for quite long. So if he can ignore those, that could potentially be very helpful for some annoying Act 6 lanes. Incinerate immunity obviously is quite useful these days, especially because we see Freezer Burn being added everywhere, and we have a lot of champions who like rely on Incinerate. So yeah, that is cool, that is definitely useful. But other than that, I don't know where he's gonna lie. By the sound of it, realistically, he doesn't have too much utility, but that can sway to one way or another depending how fast he actually plays, how fast he can cycle his special attacks, how many debuffs can he consistently trigger on opponents. Other than that, what I expect this champion to be is kind of like next step evolution of Carnage, hopefully. And that gets me excited because Carnage is one of my favorite champions. I don't think he's going to be, again, must-get champion. I don't think he's going to be anything crazy. I do think he's going to have a very solid to great damage output. I do think, obviously, the ability to counter spider heroes is going to already make him somewhat useful, plus combined with the Incinerate immunity. So that gives him semi-modest base, I would say, access to plenty of buffs, debuffs, some buffed up distract lanes, but again, every Cosmic Champion pretty much gets to do those lanes. Other than that, I just don't think there's anything too special about the character. The True Sense buff, obviously, is very interesting, but the fact that you cannot access it from the beginning of the fight and you need to get to level 3 to get to it, I don't know, it just doesn't scream effective meta counter to me. Perhaps I'm wrong, but overall I do expect him to be a relatively decent champion with some crazy bursty damage, hopefully very fun gameplay, and yeah, that is about it. I don't think he's gonna be breaking any records in terms of desirability or necessity, but yeah, that is pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think. Are you excited for Red Goblin? Are you gonna be going for him? What are the points that you like about him? What do you do not like about him? But that is about it, and I'm gonna catch you guys soon. See ya.